Hi there, this is Erica Barrow. I am the founder of Perfect Legal Video, and I'm very excited to have with us today the esteemed Nicole Lavallee. She's an attorney out of Worcester, Massachusetts, and she specializes in family court and family matters in court, divorce, child support, custody, alimony, all of that. And she has got a great way about her when it comes to handling these issues for her clients. Um, Welcome, Nicole. Thank you so much for joining us late on a Friday afternoon.
Thank you so much for having me.
You are welcome. So today we're going to talk about an interesting topic, and it's really how to get people to do what they've been ordered to do by the court, and what to do if they are not following the orders. And I know that there's probably a lot of drama surrounding this topic. Is that right?
There's a lot of drama around it, and there's a lot of ramifications for it when you don't follow through. So you really have to understand that the court orders do have teeth, and they can come back to bite you if you don't follow them.
Well, we are going to find out more about those teeth in this interview today. But the first thing that I'll say is, if you have a court order, I mean, it takes a lot to get to that. People that haven't gone through a divorce need to understand that it's a very long process. Sometimes it takes years, and lots of lawyer fees and time and emotions. And you finally get your orders, and what is the first thing you should do if your ex is not following the orders?
Well, you have to make sure that the order that you're reading it properly. So that's a big thing. Is a lot of times people will skim over it and think they know what something says, but it doesn't actually say that. So first and foremost, you need to make sure that it's right, what you're interpreting it. And then once you do realize that you're interpreting it right, either you or your attorney should write a letter to the ex saying, you're not following this provision of the court order and you were supposed to do X, but instead you're doing Y. If you don't follow through on this, I am going to be filing a complaint for contempt, and I'm also going to be seeking attorney's fees.
Well, that is very interesting. So, I mean, is this like how does this typically happen that somebody wouldn't understand the orders? Is it because they are mostly trying to represent themselves, or is it another reason?
Sometimes the judges get overly wordy and they try to solve all of the problems in a temporary order rather than waiting for the divorce. So some of those issues are the judge overanalyzing it. Some of it just doesn't make sense because I'm supposed to pick up the kids at 3 o'clock, but they get out of school at 2:30. So I'm really supposed to pick them up at 2:30 to 3 o'clock. Those types of things are where it gets confusing to people. Now, obviously something that's clear cut, like the child support amount is $300 a week, then it's $300 a week. What people don't understand and what the court automatically assumes everyone knows is that the $300 a week means one, weekly, regardless of whether you get paid biweekly. Two, that the week is determined by the number of Fridays. So that money is due every Friday. So again, if you get paid on Saturdays, you're technically going to be late every week. So it's things like that that you need to consider. And of course, the judge isn't going to necessarily say that's a contemptible issue, but it is going to be something that the court is going to want to look at and make sure that you correct going forward.
Now, how can I enforce those orders when things
Well,
aren't going right?
Well, the first thing is obviously, like I said, write that first letter saying, hey, you need to correct the issues. If they don't correct the issues, then you do have the right to go into court and file what is called a complaint for contempt. The complaint for contempt is going to set forth the court order and what specifically that they are violating in that court order. And then the prayer is what we call the wherefore paragraph. And that prayer says specifically what you are looking for. So it's not a prayer as religion, it's just a prayer for legal terms. And what that does is it says, I want my spouse to do X, Y, and Z. So they haven't paid child support. They're behind $1,200 a week. Plus, I also want them to pay my attorney's fees for having to bring them into court. Then we would get a court hearing approximately about a month later. And then that month hearing, then at that time, the judge would make a determination. Before that court date, if the person that's being held in contempt gets the notice, they should reach out and try to work out a deal. Because obviously going in front of the judge could result in sanctions, could result in them paying their spouse's attorney's fees, which is probably the most hated thing for people to do, or even incarceration. Depending on what specifically they're doing, again, it could be either incarceration or you could lose custody of your kids. So we have to take this order very seriously because there are serious ramifications for it.
Now, I've also heard, and I don't know if this has to do with what you're talking about, do they ever take away somebody's license, or I guess professional licenses and driver's licenses and visas and that sort of thing?
Absolutely. Those occur generally through the Department of Revenue. So if you're getting your income by wage assignment, the Department of Revenue will automatically do that regardless of a contempt pending. Their rules are if it's more than $1,000, they will start taking any of your licenses. So your professional license, your driver's license. It takes a little bit more for the passport to be revoked, but they won't allow you to renew your passport. But again, from the court's perspective, they will absolutely do that as well. Generally speaking, the court doesn't want to do that because we all understand that if you don't have a car, you're not going to get to work. You're not going to be able to pay child support. Same thing, obviously, if you lose a professional license or it's suspended. So DOR has that capability, and they're the ones that generally enforce it, where mom or dad generally shy away from it, as does the court, because the ramifications are not helpful to this child and not helpful to this family.
Now, would they do that? Would they wait until you have your court date to, I guess, check in with all of that and come up with a solution? Or do they do that right away once you tell them that you're not getting the money that you're supposed to have?
If it's through DOR, they have their deadline. So again, if it's $1,000 or more, that's when they're automatically going to do it. DOR does it regardless of whether you want them to or not, because you've accepted their services. If it's obviously from mom and dad or the attorneys, then that's something that the parties and or their attorneys can work it out.
Okay. So if they do go through this and they're saying that there's no money, like how fast would some of those things happen? How fast would, like, and I don't even know if it gets to this very often, but how fast would somebody be incarcerated, for example? I would assume that that's the last thing that happens.
It depends on the person and it depends on the circumstances. And again, it depends on how of a blatant disregard people are to the law. So if you have somebody that just does not care in any way, shape, or form about their court order and just says, I'm never paying, I'm not making any effort to pay, versus somebody that says, I really can't afford it, I'm doing what I can, I'm selling things, I'm trying to do what I can, I'm borrowing money, that's going to be a different story than I'm just not going to pay you and I'm not going to give you any pennies. Those types of things, those blatant disregard will end you in jail on a first contempt. The people that are saying in the meantime, well, I'm really struggling, I'm trying to do the best I can, I know, but I can only pay an extra $20 a week toward the arrears, is that okay? And again, you're going to hopefully have an attorney and another party that's going to be reasonable to that, but we have to see where that falls. And again, after the third or fourth contempt of, we get it, we're no longer going to get it and we're going to incarcerate you.
Do you see a lot of repeat offenders with this? I mean, it seems like somebody that has either an issue with paying their child support or just isn't making enough money is going to constantly have that problem, kind of like the people that have problems paying all the rest of their bills. What do you typically see in this case?
The court will want to see what you're looking at for expenses. So one of the key things is, are you paying for Netflix? Are you paying for cable? Are you paying for non-necessities? Well, wait a minute. If you're doing that stuff and not paying for support, that doesn't go over very well. So the court gets very nasty with people like that because you're prioritizing, you're saying luxury items like that are more important than your children. So if they see that it's really a struggling person, I just lost my job, I'm in between jobs, I'm trying to find another one, I'm working really hard. Sometimes they'll put you in like a job search program or something like that that will help you out. So it really kind of depends on the family, the circumstances, what is happening. And they will look at overall. And again, if you're dealing with a reasonable attorney and you're willing to negotiate, a lot of times most people are willing to go, yes, I'll give you a break. You're going to continue to pay the current support, but you're also going to be contributing a nominal amount toward the arrears until it's paid in full. And sometimes those arrears takes 5 to 10 years to get paid in full. My suggestion is never to wait more than 3 weeks of being behind before you file the contempt, because you don't want it to get that excessive. You want to be able to get that recoupment of that money within a matter of a couple weeks or a month.
I mean, heck, that's kind of like taking a loan from your children.
Exactly.
And I can see where you'd want to file right away. Now, what happens if they do incarcerate the parent that is not paying?
They generally have what is called a purge amount. And purge is kind of like a bail, if you will. It says you have to pay $5,000 to get out of jail, or we will keep you in jail for a period of time. And the judge will tell you right then and there from the bench that I'm going to put you in jail. I'm going to incarcerate you. I'm going to give you a purge amount of $15,000, whatever the magic number is that day, unless, and jail sentence of 30 days. So if you come up with that $15,000 in that scenario, then you get released. Otherwise, you stay in jail for 30 days or whatever the order is until that time, and that amount still doesn't go away.
And you weren't able to work during that month to help pay for your life and for the child support. So you probably get even further behind.
Well, you do, but amazing enough, I can't tell you how many times people go to jail, pick up the phone, and lo and behold, somebody bails them out within a matter of hours. So generally speaking, it's a very good incentive. And I think I've only had one case in 18 plus years where they've sat in jail for the entire time because they didn't have the money and they didn't have any family support to call on. But generally, they find the money and they get out, and then at least the recipient spouse is very happy because now they can pay their bills because they're being behind in their bills and they're bouncing checks as a result of not getting their child support.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. And I can see where that would be true because these people otherwise would probably never be in jail. I mean, most of the people are probably just regular citizens out doing their work and not criminals. And it's just like the drunk driver, for example. They didn't expect to be in handcuffs and in a jail cell, but lo and behold, here they are. So yeah, I can see where they'd want to get out right away if they possibly can, and beg, borrow, and steal to do it. So that helps out everybody.
Absolutely.
Now, in the beginning, we kind of got right into this topic, and let's just back up a second and just say, hey, you've been doing this for 18 years. Um, just tell us a little bit about yourself. Like, why did you get into this particular type of law? And, is anything else that you want to add?
Yes, I've been doing it for 18 years. I've been owning my own firm for over the last 10 years. And my primary focus is the family and real estate. And I do the family because it's very rewarding. I love that I'm helping the children. I love seeing the children grow up and see how well they're doing and how they're thriving with, the parents even being separated. It gives you joy when you sit there and think, oh, this home is now shattered. Well, it's shattered, but once they get divorced and they move on, everybody's happier, including the child, and that really shows. And it's something that gives me great satisfaction when I can see, hey, look, this child just won a scholarship, and this one's doing so well, and they're going off to medical school and things like that. And obviously those are the rewards, but you also see the little things in life where they just see, oh, they made their first milestone and they started walking, because you do get the kids that are that young that parents are going through a divorce. So it's just very rewarding to see families thrive after this whole process, because it doesn't have to be a horrible situation. It is for a certain period of time, and we all get that. And we certainly can understand and empathize with that, but it does get better, and it gets better relatively quickly. It's just one of those things that it's rough when you're going through it, and afterwards, it's such a blessing in disguise.
Well, I mean, and I love that you said that. And I can say from experience, because I'm a video marketer and I have done your commercial and I've met many of your clients, and they all just glow when they talk about you. They have amazing reviews for what you do. What they are going through is so stressful, and the way that you explain things, it's just very, it's very matter of fact, but it's very empathetic. You have a really great way of talking about something that somebody else is really emotional about, not making them feel like you don't hear that emotional part, but keeping them reeled back in, and talking about what the reality is of the situation, and that there are options, and that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. So I think that that has been something that all of your clients have said, and it was really nice to hear all those great reviews about the work that you do. And it's great to hear how much you enjoy it, because it certainly shows in your work and how those testimonials came out when I came out to do those videos.
Thank you. I really do love every single day that I practice. So it's a joy and a blessing.
That's fantastic. Now, before we go, typically I'll ask you, is there anything else that you would like to say about this particular topic of enforcing orders for family court?
The biggest thing I can tell you is hire an attorney. I'm not doing it to be selfish or for us to make more money. That's not the goal. But I can't tell you how many times people have gone into court on either temporary orders or worse yet, a divorce or final judgment, and they don't understand what they're signing. They don't understand what the ramifications are. A good attorney is going to be able to go through things and say, realistically, how are you going to afford to do that? Are you sure this is really something that you want to do? And point out what the flaws are with this stipulation or this document that you're going to be signing. Because all too often people come to me right after they sign something.
Ugh.
And it is next to impossible for me to get that judgment overturned. So do it before it's too late. One of the things is I can at least talk you through it, and show you what the words are. I mean, just something very simple. Like, the general public doesn't understand the difference between shall and may. It's used all the time in the court system. If you don't understand the difference of it and you sign a document, there's huge ramifications for it. So I get that you can understand what the child support amount is. It's just that number. But when you don't look at the big picture and you don't look at all the words, that's a problem. And you have to understand that no matter how nice that attorney is on the other side, they do not work for you. So they will put things in there like shall or may and other words that you don't necessarily understand the interpretation in the legal world that will change everything. So it's in your best interest to be on the same playing field as your spouse when you go into court, because you need to understand that those court orders will come back and they will haunt you, and it's very difficult to change it otherwise.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I have met plenty of people that just tried to do their divorce themselves, and then for the rest of their lives, or and their child's lives, they have to live below their means, or not be able to do everything they'd like to do for their child, because they didn't do their divorce right. They didn't get help. They thought they could just do something quick. And the other thing I wanted to mention is that and people don't realize it. Sometimes you get into these divorces and you start arguing over silly little things that end up costing you a lot in lawyer fees. And from what I understand, from the testimonials and what I've heard about what you do, I really think that you will point out the silly things that are not worth arguing over. so that you can save them tens of thousands of dollars. I mean, hiring a lawyer may seem expensive, but I guarantee you it's way more expensive to try to do a job that you've never done before that's going to really affect the rest of your life and your child's life.
I think you made an excellent point. I can't tell you how many times I've said, we're fighting over $5 a week for 5 years. Let's do the math. And I do the math and I say, and now I've been sitting here for 2 hours negotiating the same thing. That's the same amount of money you're going to get paid under this $5 that you're fighting over. So I do kind of put it in terms that people can understand, because they do have that mental block, that I just don't want to do it because it's my ex. Well, one, it's not for your ex, it's for your child. So first you have to focus on that. Second, you have to look at the cost effectiveness of me sitting there negotiating for something which is nominal. So I definitely bring that up quite often in negotiations and settlements, because people get stuck on things, and I get it, but you have to look at, is it cost effective, and is it something that you really can either live with or without?
That's what I love about you. You really bring people down, and you're the voice of reason, and you do look out for their pocketbooks and their best interests. I've heard lots of great things about you. I've heard that sometimes when people might get their spouse's business assessed, and it could be super expensive, and you really shop around to find the best vendors for certain things. That's just one great example, but I mean, there's a million others. So I'm so glad that your clients have you, and I know that you do a fantastic job out there in Worcester, and I know that you go all over. You go all over the state.
I do go all over the state, but obviously primarily in Worcester.
Yeah, absolutely. The traffic is terrible around here. All right. Well, I want to thank you so much for coming on today and explaining some of these facts about enforcing orders and giving us some interesting stories. It's certainly very dramatic if people have to go to jail, but great points that you made about the quickest way to get your money, and hopefully it doesn't have to come to that. So yeah, I want to thank you so much. We hope that you come back again sometime, and I hope you have a fantastic weekend.
Thank you so much. This was very enjoyable, and I look forward to having another session.
Excellent. All right. Well, have a great day.
Thank you.